It happened on a warm, Sunday afternoon in June. I remember the sunlight hitting my windshield as I parked near the cafe downtown. My wife, Emily, had said she was meeting a friend for coffee. Something in her tone that morning didn't sit right with me. After 20 years of marriage, you start to feel things, tiny changes, small hesitations. That day, I felt it deep in my chest. She smiled too quickly, avoided my eyes. I told myself I was overthinking, but my gut whispered otherwise. So I drove to that cafe, just to ease my mind. I wasn't expecting to destroy my world. From my car, I saw her. She was on the terrace, wearing the blue dress I bought her last Christmas. Across the table sat her boss, Richard, the man I'd heard her mention a dozen times. He was laughing, that smug, confident laugh of his. Emily leaned in, touching his hand, then she kissed him, not a friendly kiss. It was soft, slow, deliberate. I froze, my heart went completely still. The sound of traffic faded, replaced by a buzzing in my ears. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. My wife, the woman I shared everything with, was kissing another man, and she looked happy. Not guilty, not nervous, just happy. I wanted to burst in there, to yell, to demand an explanation. But my hands were trembling too hard, so I sat and watched the woman I loved betray me. I wish I could say I cried right there, but I didn't. I just went numb. When they stood up and left, hand in hand, I stayed in the car. 10 minutes, then 20, then 40, I couldn't move. Every memory, our wedding, our first home, our son's birth, played like a cruel movie in my head. I finally drove home, not knowing what I was going to do. The house felt colder than usual when I stepped inside. Her perfume still lingered in the hallway. I sat in the living room, staring at our wedding photo. We looked so young, so hopeful. I whispered to the picture, "Where did we go wrong?" I didn't know whether to hate her or myself. When she came home 3 hours later, she acted normal, like nothing had happened. She kissed my cheek and said, "You wouldn't believe how long that meeting went." A meeting. I nodded, pretending I believed her. That night, I lay awake listening to her breathe beside me. My chest felt like it was caving in. How could she sleep so peacefully after what she did? The next morning, I made coffee like usual. She smiled, asked about my day, as if our marriage hadn't just been shattered. I wanted to scream the truth in her face, but I didn't. I needed time to think. For 3 days, I lived in silence, half alive, half pretending. I started noticing all the lies I'd missed before. The late work calls, the sudden urge to get fit, the new perfume she said a friend recommended. It all made sense now. It was like seeing a puzzle complete itself in the worst possible way. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I just kept replaying that kiss. That soft, slow kiss that ripped everything apart. Finally, on the 4th day, I decided to confront her. She was in the kitchen, humming, cutting fruit for breakfast. I said her name, and she turned, smiling like always. "Emily," I said, "how long have you been seeing him?" Her hands froze, the knife slipped from her fingers. For a moment, silence filled the room, then she whispered, "How did you?" I told her everything, the cafe, the terrace, the kiss. Her face turned pale, she didn't deny it. She didn't even try, instead, tears filled her eyes. She said, "I didn't mean for it to happen, but betrayal is never an accident." I felt anger rise, mixed with heartbreak and disbelief. I told her I needed her to leave the house. She begged me not to, but I couldn't even look at her anymore. She packed a small bag, crying the whole time. And I just stood there, numb, as the woman I loved walked out the door. The silence that followed was unbearable. Every sound in that empty house echoed like thunder. For the first few days, I thought I'd go insane. I checked my phone constantly, expecting her to call. But she didn't, and I refused to call her first. I started drinking more than I should have. Just to make the nights shorter, I avoided people. Even my coworkers noticed I wasn't myself. One of them, Mark, invited me fishing one weekend. He said, "Man, you need air. You're turning into a ghost." I almost said no, but something in me agreed. The next morning, we drove to the lake. The air smelled like pine and cold water. We sat in silence for hours, casting lines, saying little. It was the first time I'd felt peace in weeks. At sunset, Mark finally spoke. "Whatever she did," he said, "don't let it take you down with her." His words hit me hard. That night, I went home and deleted her number. Not because I stopped loving her, but because I needed to start healing. The days turned into weeks. The pain didn't go away, but it became quieter. I started journaling, writing down my thoughts every morning. At first, it was all anger, but then it turned into reflection. Where did I go wrong? Had I stopped showing her love, or was she just chasing something I could never give? Those questions haunted me, but they also made me grow. Slowly, I began to rebuild my routine. Work, gym, cooking for one. Evenings were the hardest. That's when loneliness crept in. But I was learning to sit with it, to understand it, because in that silence, I started to hear myself again. And maybe, just maybe, that was the point of all this. 3 months passed before I realized I hadn't thought about Emily for a whole day. It startled me, that quiet gap in my mind where pain used to live. Healing isn't a sudden event, it's a slow fade. You don't wake up healed, you just wake up tired of hurting. I stopped checking her social media, stopped imagining what she was doing, and started focusing on what I was becoming. One evening, I signed up for a cooking class. Not because I cared about recipes, I just wanted to be around people again. That's where I met Lisa. She was in her early 40s, with kind eyes and a laugh that filled the room. She noticed I kept burning the onions. "Too much heat," she said with a smile. "You're trying too hard." Her words stuck with me, not just about cooking, but about life. We started talking more each class. At first, just small talk, weather, recipes, music. Then deeper things, past mistakes, regrets, dreams. She told me she lost her husband 5 years ago to cancer. There was pain in her voice, but also strength. I told her about Emily. For the first time, I spoke about it without anger. Lisa listened, really listened. No pity, no judgment, just understanding. After class, she asked if I wanted to grab coffee. I hesitated. I wasn't sure I was ready. But I said yes. That night, we sat in a small diner until it closed. Talking about everything and nothing, I laughed for the first time in months. And it felt strange, like remembering a part of myself I'd buried. Driving home, I realized something. Pain doesn't always end, it just changes shape. But sometimes, if you're lucky, it turns into something softer, like gratitude. The following weeks, Lisa and I kept meeting. We didn't label anything. It wasn't love, not yet. It was companionship, and maybe that was enough. I started looking forward to mornings again. Started caring about how I looked, started living. One afternoon, I went through old boxes in the garage. Photos, letters, souvenirs from years long gone. Among them, I found our wedding album. For a moment, I just stared at it. I thought I'd feel anger, but I didn't, just a quiet sadness. And a whisper of gratitude for the man I used to be. I realized I wasn't angry at Emily anymore. I was thankful, not for what she did, but for what it forced me to become. That betrayal cracked me open, and through that crack, light came in. For years, I'd lived like a shadow of myself, working, providing, existing, but I'd forgotten how to feel. Now, every sunset felt like a gift, every conversation mattered. Even solitude didn't scare me anymore. It felt like peace. Lisa noticed the change in me. "You seem lighter," she said one evening. I smiled and said, "Maybe I finally put the past down." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand, and in that moment, I knew I was okay. Not fixed, not the same, just okay, and that was enough. A few weeks later, Emily called. Her number appeared on my phone for the first time in 6 months. For a second, I considered ignoring it. But curiosity won. "Hi," she said softly. "I just wanted to know how you're doing." I told her I was fine. And I meant it. She said she was sorry, truly sorry. Said she made a mistake and would regret it forever. There was a time I would have given anything to hear those words, but now, they didn't matter. I told her I forgave her, not for her sake, for mine. She cried, said she wished me happiness, and for the first time, I wished her the same. When I hung up, I felt something lift off my chest. That call closed a chapter I didn't realize was still open. And that night, I slept peacefully, no dreams, no ghosts. Months rolled by, and life found its rhythm again. Lisa and I started seeing each other more often. We took walks by the lake, went to local fairs, cooked together. Sometimes, we just sat in silence, comfortable, unforced silence. She never tried to fix me, and I never tried to replace her husband. We simply existed in each other's company. One evening, as we watched the sunset, she said, "Funny how broken people find each other." I nodded. "Maybe that's how we heal," she smiled, and I knew she understood. My son, Michael, came to visit from college that weekend. He noticed the light in my eyes and said, "Dad, you seem different." I told him, "I am." He smiled and hugged me. And for the first time in a long while, I felt proud of the man I'd become. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since my 20s. Not for money or attention, just for peace. Each brushstroke felt like breathing. Sometimes, Lisa would sit beside me, reading quietly while I painted. The world felt slower, softer, kinder. One night, as I washed the dishes, I caught my reflection in the window. And for a moment, I didn't recognize the man staring back. He looked calm, content, alive. I whispered to myself, "You made it, and maybe that's what life is, surviving one heartbreak after another until you finally remember who you are." Emily was a chapter, not the story. The story was me, learning, breaking, growing. I used to think losing her was the end, but now I see it was just the beginning. Because through loss, I found myself. Through pain, I found peace. And through forgiveness, I found freedom. If you'd told me a year ago that I'd be thankful for that betrayal, I would have laughed. But now, I understand. Sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing that ever did. It's strange, isn't it, how love can destroy you and then rebuild you in a better way. As I sit here writing this, with Lisa humming softly in the next room, I realize something. Life doesn't give you closure. You create it yourself, by letting go. And I finally did. I'm not angry anymore. Not broken, just human, and that's enough. Because the story of my life isn't about betrayal, it's about rediscovery. It's about learning that sometimes losing someone isn't the tragedy, it's the turning point. I found peace not in getting her back, but in getting myself back. And that's the kind of love that lasts forever.